On tonight's program, we all go crazy from the bugs and quit the Foundry. Just kidding.
For me, I'm a week farther along with being frustrated with how long it takes me to create something on a map.
Talk about easy suggestions not really being easy.
I'm sure these things are not easy, and I have no way of gauging how easy or hard they are, because I'm not looking at the thing in front of me.
And how do we go about building maps? There's lots of different ways.
It's the little stops on the way that'll get defined by the map.
Join us on the Foundry Roundtable.
Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I'm your tame Foundry author, Jogan1701, and I've been on vacation all week in San Francisco. And I did not get the chance to visit Cryptic Studios, but I did at least go to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is where they filmed some of Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. But I'm back with some new California-themed blatant lies about my co-hosts. So, we have with us the man who has the highest ever score at Pebble Beach, Greendragoon.
I don't even know what that game is.
Golf.
Golf!
Oh.
I knew that. It's crazy.
He knew that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Which brings us to the Marin County Community College mascot, Hippiejohn. Say hello. Did we lose Hippie?
Hello.
Hey!
You know, hey, renaming Romulan ensigns apparently
Crashes
makes
Skype.
me crashes Skype, and I don't get to tell the story of how I was, a mascot, but it's true.
Well, our guest tonight is the Canadian sensation, Zorbane.
Red text forever.
Well, I've been keeping up with things a little bit while I've been on vacation, but obviously I've been a bit out of the loop, so I'm going to turn it over to my co-hosts. So tell me, guys, what is the state of the Foundry? Is anything better than when I left?
Not really, no.
Define better.
Any fixes? The wait times?
No, it still takes forever. The Foundry's still sluggish.
The login drops for unknown reason?
Well, we've had a couple of
I've been able to get in a little more consistently.
Yeah?
We've had a couple of unannounced Foundry maintenance warnings.
I did notice that. I don't know what that was about. Guess it didn't fix much?
I don't know.
Not that I saw.
I don't think so either.
I'm still experiencing the exact same things that we were experiencing right before you went on vacation, which is preview maps taking forever and, yeah.
But Greendragoon, you were telling us that Neverwinter's experiencing some of these same things in their Foundry, right?
Yeah, from what I see, I don't pop in there very often. There are other Foundry authors who spend much more time in the Neverwinter Foundry than I do. But it seemed like they'd had a few of it. I know they've also dealt with some downtime lately due to something that the devs described was capable of data loss. And at least that's the reason they gave for why they felt it was necessary to bring the Foundry down. So they have actually had some complete Foundry downtime that we haven't had to deal with.
And Hippie, you said you were getting pretty frustrated with it. There's probably a level for everybody, all of us.
I think there's going to be a point where we all get to, and it's just, for me, I'm a week farther along with being frustrated with how long it takes me to create something on a map. And I went from wanting to create this really cool idea that I had for a colony that, because of all of the placement I will have to do to be putting things on tables inside of tents and all of that, that's going in and out of the preview map, trying to get the Y coordinate just right and everything else. And I only have so much patience when the map literally every time for me, some people have said, we've been able to load maps really quickly. Every time for me, it takes at least 5 minutes, and that's a minimum. I have had maps take 8 minutes to load. And when you're trying to go back in and out 4 or 5 times per object or per area to get things exactly right, and to even do something like, I have some NPCs on this map that I want to animate. that I want them doing, I want to use the legacy behavior. I want them to wander around, animate at different areas, talk once in a while. But instead, I'm going to settle for putting them in a static position and giving them an animation because I've reached that point of frustration of going in and out of the preview maps and it taking so long and getting so little done in like a 2-hour period. When you used to be able to almost finish a map, or at least get things mostly in position, it's just gotten very frustrating, is what I can say about it.
It's a funny thing, it's not the preview loading times that have been really getting to me, it's been the, just general sluggishness of the Foundry. And I've timed it, it's literally like every click that you do, there is a 1 second delay in response. So you click, wait, respond. Click, wait, respond. Click, wait. Yeah, and it slows everything down so much.
I think Zorb, you were telling us that you kind of had stopped editing at the moment. We're just writing dialogue, right?
Yeah, I mean, same as Hippie. I guess he has more patience than I do. I just got tired of having to wait 5 minutes every time I had to, like you said, move an NPC, move a console over, turn the console around. And I just gave up after probably like a week ago, and I just made, just work on the dialogue, kind of build the maps on paper first instead of putting it in the map editor, and that kind of stuff instead.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. That's our next usual topic, of course. What have we been working on? Obviously, I haven't been working on anything because I've been gone. So, Zorb, you've been doing dialogue and that sort of thing. So, Hippie, what have you been working on?
I'm working on it right now. I'm at one of those moments where I'm not incredibly frustrated with the Foundry. I am frustrated, don't get me wrong. I certainly am frustrated, but I'm right now placing maps on what has become the colony map, which I don't even remember what the base map I decided to use is, but it's one of these. I've got a story that's just like burning a hole in my mind. I want to put it out there, and I can't wait for the Foundry to catch up. Maybe that's why I have a little more patience right now with how much of a pain in the ass that it is right now. It is, I can't stand working in here after about an hour. I'm going to be done with it. It's a guarantee. But yeah, I'm working on the Romulan mission. What was going to be a nice, completely custom-made colony map is instead being built on a pre-made map, but that is the current state of the Foundry as far as I'm concerned. that things that could have been a lot cooler, now people are not taking nearly as much time. And the other thing that bothers me about the current kind of state of the Foundry, I guess, is new authors having to experience this as what they now must think is just the way that the Foundry works. So, I don't know. I've been working on my mission and wondering how other people are handling this. So.
Yeah, I know. I mean, every time I see someone come into the forum saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting into the Foundry," he's like, just have this urge to say,
you sort of cringe.
Not now.
Now is a bad time.
I want to be like, no, come in when it works right, please. Because it does work right sometimes.
Sometimes. But obviously we're going on, 2 months nearly. It's like a week under 2 months that the Foundry has either been offline or just completely riddled with new bugs.
So it's funny, Hippiejohn was kind of talking about reaching that point of frustration, and for me, I kind of hit such a point this week with, it was basically I watched, or MMORPG did a live stream interview with Rob Overmeyer, and just listening to that, it was very difficult for me as a Stowe Foundry author, just because he was putting in so much, it was very reminiscent of those just kind of the discussions that Dan used to have back before he left and came back. Those pie in the sky kind of discussion. I mean, he was talking about trying to get in things like a full 3D editor, and he was even entertaining the idea of player submitted models, which, I mean, I'll believe that when I see it, but still, I mean, it's been a very long time since we've seen such enthusiasm for the Foundry and Stowe.
Yeah. I after you linked me to that, I listened to it and had a very similar, like, painful time listening to the thing.
Yeah, all we want is bugs get fixed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right now, that's sort of the big thing. And of course, the other big bug that we haven't mentioned is what's going on with the search interface.
Which is actually a subject that, you're talking about the 50 mission limit bug.
Yeah.
We could just drop right into discussion topics and save reviews for the end. I mean, we can do that.
We could do that.
At least we'll end on something positive.
It sounded like that you guys had wanted to talk about that.
I debated about talking about this or not.
We should talk about it.
Because it's a big problem, I think. I mean, of all the problems that we have right now, I think that's the biggest. Because it's a problem with accessibility to the Foundry from players, which we want more of, not less of.
Yep, yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, 50 is not a lot. And I'm going to say at this point it is a bug. It doesn't seem like this is something they would intentionally try to...
No, it's the new weighting system. The new weighting system is absolutely ridiculous. It makes no sense whatsoever. Missions that people have had up forever, that have a decent amount of reviews, that used to be, or at least by adding up and figuring out that they have, 55 stars and, maybe 5 or 6 1 stars and a bunch of 4 stars and they're like, whatever, like these missions that should be 4 and 5 star missions are being rated in at like 1.5 stars. And they're not making the top rated list, and instead what's making the top rated list is garbage. It's farmer stuff. Now some people love it. Cheers to you out there who love farming missions. It's garbage. I don't like it. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be at the top of the list, but, it's time to talk about those search tabs again, to break up real story missions from farmer, Admiral Bobo goes to the war, Ludomatic 3000 crap. Sorry, there have to be search tabs to separate these things.
This brings up an excellent point that was brought up in the Rob Overmeyer interview is, Neverwinter is apparently with the next big content update. Neverwinter is getting search tags, or I think it's more probably just search terms. Yeah. So you can stick a bunch of search terms in there. Yeah. But
so that you type those into your mission.
Yeah.
So that
it would be like metatags.
Yeah, like tags. Okay, gotcha.
That's something we've been asking for a while, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or some version of that.
Neverwinter is running into the exact same problem of it's just become so cluttered so fast that
they
anything that started out is stuck
so
there.
many more missions than you could possibly imagine over there in Neverwinter.
But I mean, I almost kind of wonder what possible type of automated system could sort through just all that many missions, good or bad. I mean, there are a lot of Foundry missions.
It has to be something. The only way for an automated system to do it is that it has to be something really simple. And I have said it before, and I really think that this exact system would work. And that would be that an author is only allowed to give their mission a tag of story or like loot or farmer or whatever. They can put other search tags on it, a line full of search tags like Romulan Republic, things like, Breen mission, whatever. They can put that on another line, but there should be 2 search tags, which are combat and story intensive, and an author has to choose one for their mission to get listed under. And there should be a spot at the end of the mission when you're giving it a number of stars and writing down whatever you want about it, where you vote whether it was combat or story. and what list you think it should be listed in. Now, yes, some missions contain a good deal of combat and are very story-oriented. I would put those in story. I mean, we know what we're talking about here. We want a way to separate the grinder lootomatic missions, which are totally legitimate in the terms of service and everything else. They're totally fine as long as they're not using exploits. I don't like playing them, but they're totally fine, and so I just want a way to separate things that are actually going to appeal to my love of drama and my want to see a story unfold before me, and be a part of that story, as opposed to my want to just go pew, 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 pew for a half an hour, 10 minutes, or however long. I just need those 2 search tags. And then if everybody who voted at the end of every 100 votes, or at the end of every week, if you've had 25 plays, at the end of every week it's recalculated based on the votes. The author gets to choose where it goes at first, but then the people who play it choose where it gets listed. That's exactly what I would do with it.
What would you think of a divided lore system, or a divided star system?
What do you mean divided star system?
So instead of just having 1 star rating, we have several categories. For instance, story, combat.
Okay.
I don't know, like gameplay, or like several different categories. So
kind of like what how some of the other podcasts review missions. They give them stars for go through each of these categories.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. I just don't know if the common player will do it.
Well, I would say make it optional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, review right now is optional anyways. Like, they can just hit the cancel button. You won't have to put anything.
This is true. I think going along with what you were saying, Hippie, I think there's another couple of things that could be done to help sort of increase the visibility and increase the integration of the Foundry. And these are things we've talked about before, of course. Mm-hmm. One is putting more access points to the Foundry out in the game. You know, put a contact guy on Earth Starbase with all of the missions that begin on Earth Starbase that you can scroll through. He doesn't intrude on your gameplay, but he's there. And it's another access point. You know, when you fly out and you go up to the DACE system or whatever system, there's a little button you can click that says Foundry missions. And it'll give you all the Foundry missions that start there.
So, I mean, would you want to see something done like what Neverwinter did with the Harpers, where you talk to someone and they give you an option of 3 randomly chosen missions to choose from?
That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely, if they could make sure that it works.
Mm-hmm.
Because at first,
obviously, with the caveat is, any suggestion we make, as long as it works, is sort of inherent in that.
Yeah, that's true.
But this would be a good point, while we're making suggestions. I think this would be a good point, because I ran across something, this is from another game, but I think that, players, any MMO players who post on forums should take it to heart. This is from a dev question and answer, a 20 questions thing that the Lord of the Rings Online devs did. Someone asked, a common staple of players asking for feature X is that it will be, quote, easy to implement. Can you give us any insight into what is actually involved in making minor changes to the game? And the person who responded says, it is impossible to gauge ease of implementation without having a thorough knowledge of how things work under the hood. Now, obviously, that's something I see from, on every sector
that makes total sense.
Including the Foundry forums. Is that, why haven't you put in X feature? That ought to be easy. Or, and especially lately with the costume importers, like, why haven't you gotten that back yet? It ought to be easy. I'm sure these things are not easy, and I have no way of gauging how easy or hard they are, because I'm not looking at the thing in front of me. I'm not looking at the software. No. I don't know how it works under the hood, as this dev says. It says things that are conceptually simple aren't necessarily easy to implement. And of equal importance is resource management. In order to release big things, we have dedicated staff. Diverting them away, even for things that are easy, is a cost. We are constantly prioritizing as best we can, but day to day we are stuck with a lot of ideas that just don't fit. And he says it is also a fluid process. Things change, priorities change. Someone might have the idea to work on something one day, he gets to work, he gets assigned something else. Or he decides, no, we can't do that, and assigns the person he was going to assign to do that to something else. So, I mean, we can't, as players, we can't really gauge. I mean, no matter how much programming experience we have, even if we are game designers, we can't really gauge how easy or hard something is to implement.
Because we don't know how, exactly, because we don't know how their system is working.
Now, I would say,
makes sense.
Don't let that stop you from suggesting things. I mean, they want you to suggest things. Just keep that sort of realistic view in mind that what you're suggesting may not, in fact, be easy.
Uh-huh.
So let's take that around and apply it to what's going on right now with the Foundry. I mean, as much as we all kind of are frustrated with the current sluggishness and delay in the Foundry, obviously we don't know how hard it is to fix these bugs. Not to mention that our bugs are kind of in the pile with probably a million other bugs that the game has to deal with. So They're worrying about things like you mentioned to me before that you were having a problem with costume slots jamming for you on your Klingon character. That's in the same pile as the Foundry bugs. There's also things like how difficult a bug is to track down. I'm going to bet you 10 to 1 that the something as I don't know difficult to pinpoint as sluggish Foundry performance is something that's going to take a lot of manpower to track down. And it's not something they're going to be able to do quickly. I mean, they've got to run net tests. Mm-hmm. They've got to track all of these different things, try to source down the problem. And then they've got to turn around and try to fix it. And depending on what's actually going wrong, that could take a certain amount of time.
And depending on how many devs they have assigned to the task of Foundry bugs and what else they have on their plate.
And that's another thing is just because there's a bug in the Foundry does not mean that the rest of the team is allowed to drop what they're doing and go fix it. Cryptic has a schedule, and the schedule is actually really important because the schedule ensures that development moves forward on Stowe so that they can do things like continue to make sure that the game has an income or make sure that game-wide releases come out on time. The next season. I mean, if they drop everything to fix all the bugs, how long would it delay the next season?
And they always do say that, the people who fix bugs are not the people who are making ships. However, the people who fix bugs and the QA people have to be testing those new things constantly. So, I mean, they've got a lot of stuff on their plate. So, I mean, those are just some of the reasons why we're not getting these Foundry fixes.
There's also the problem of, even once they start working on a bug, it may be weeks before we actually see the effects of them fixing it.
And I feel bad for Cryptic Frost sometimes because, I mean, obviously we want to know when it's going to be fixed. He can't tell us that.
No. I mean, his job is to report them and make sure that
to track them down, figure out how to replicate them and pass all that information along.
Yeah, when he hears us, hears the community report them.
And they don't seem to tell him when things are going to be fixed.
No.
Just too bad. I mean, if I was him, I'd want to know, but maybe they just don't want to tell him.
He won't hear about it until the programmers come back and say, "Hey, I've put in this fix for this problem. I need you to go test it to make sure it works."
And I mean, even then, he's probably not going to say. Well, I mean, we have heard him say a few times, I've seen a fix for this. I don't know when it will go live. Obviously, he can't tell us when it will go live.
The programmer has reported that they have a fix in place and they need QA to test it.
He's like all of Cryptic is they don't want to say when things are going to go live in case they miss the deadline.
Yeah, but even QA devs, assuming that they have a fix and it actually works the first time, because sometimes their fixes don't work the first time.
Or the fix breaks something else.
Doesn't fix it all. Yeah. He's at best probably only have a few days head notice on us. Because, I mean, once the fix is verified, it gets put in a build.
Yeah. Well, I think my answer to your question of how does that we know that they have priorities, et cetera, relate to the Foundry. Here's my typical forum poster response. Our issues are the most important. Listen to us. My real response is I wish they would fix things in the Foundry. I hope that it doesn't reach the point that I'm so frustrated that I just quit building things in the Foundry and never come back. I hope it never reaches that point is what I'm getting at but I trust them to make a good game that I'm going to continue playing. I wouldn't have bought a lifetime subscription without it. So my response to your question is I'm glad that we know that these things exist and that they're bothering us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
if
it.
you were hoping to scare off Hippiejohn, it's not going to work.
Well, it might scare me out of the Foundry or at least drive me away for a while. Mm-hmm. I doubt it. I'm in there right now. Man, this map is taking forever to load. Just putting that out there. It's been 6 minutes so far.
Well, we take inspiration from children's movies and say, just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Swimming.
So, one thing I will say, this is the thing I really debated about bringing up is, after listening to the Rob Overmeyer interview and just how enthusiastic they were about Foundry development, I would like to see, at least, I don't want to say, I'm not going to dictate timelines or whatnot to Cryptic, because honestly, I don't know how long anything takes. I can't. And think it's foolish to even try.
Yeah. You could try, but it would get you nowhere.
I want them to take the Foundry seriously enough to kind of start, basically to update the roadmap. I want them to kind of come up with a roadmap for where the Foundry is going. And because right now we get the occasional feature. It's always, if they happen to have time, we have no idea what they're working on other than assumedly bug fixes and a little bit of a Foundry tech or Neverwinter tech importing. We don't really have any idea where we're going with this. And I would just love Cryptic to sit down and give a plan. Here's our long-term goals for the Foundry. No promises on when any of this will hit, but this is our postmark. This is our benchmark.
And it'd be nice to see that enthusiasm carry through into actual things.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're going to see that.
I can dream, right?
We can dream, but I don't think we're going to see that. I think, what I said, I don't know how many weeks ago now, it is really, we're not going to get as much as we're sitting, and hoping for probably. And, no, obviously we're not going to. There's no probably involved there. What we should really be thinking is what can the devs who have shown that they have some interest in what goes on in the Foundry, what can they realistically, in combination with the community, accomplish? And what I want is for those devs to come out to the forums, come on different podcasts, ours, Podcast UGC, go talk to the guys on Primetime UGC, go talk to the people on Priority One. I don't care what show they go on. The people that go on Foundry Files, like I said, anywhere that they can go, the people that care about the Foundry, come on and tell us what they can do. I don't need a timeline of them taking it seriously. Just the people who actually care, because I'm willing to bet it's not all however many people work at Cryptic that care about user-generated content. There's probably, a good dozen. I don't know. I have no clue, but get some of those devs to come on and talk to people and say, this is what we can realistically accomplish, given the very limited resources we have. Help us do it. That kind of thing. That's the devs I want to hear from. I could care less about hearing from the bigwigs at this point, whether, what the long-term goals are. I want the people who can make short-term goals happen to tell us what's realistic. You know, we had Zero at one point tell us a map takes all day to get in the Foundry. Okay. How often is someone able to dedicate a computer to all day putting a map in the Foundry? You know, tell us stuff like that, and you know, or tell us when things like that happen.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at, though, with the plant, with basically a roadmap. Is like I said, no timelines in here, just where are we going? I mean, what are our expectations? I mean, lack of communication is hard to work with, and we don't have no communication, but we don't have much communication on where the Foundry fits in with everything.
We don't have much communication.
Well, I don't think it does fit in much with everything at the moment. And I think they should make an effort to make it fit in.
Yeah. One thing I will kind of finish off with, and I was actually, I was reading an article, I think it was on one of the two MMO sites, and it was basically talking about UGC content and the dangers and whatnot. And what the article was about actually isn't really important to this, but the fact is that even now, when people talk about UGC at Cryptic, Star Trek is still held up as an example of UGC. So and it's because still few MMOs actually engage in UGC.
The UGC that's in a lot of other MMOs is more like housing.
Yeah.
You know, you build a house and other people can see it. I mean, there's some really cool systems for that.
UGC, any more than your bridge is UGC.
Yeah.
But my point is that Cryptic, whether you feel that the Foundry is a priority enough for Star Trek Online in its grand scheme, it is a noticeable factor from the outside. And I think they need to kind of keep that in mind. And that is about as far as I will take it.
Well, the huge thing in Neverwinter, right? Like that's one of their.
Yeah, I mean, Foundry definitely made a big deal when Neverwinter launched, but Stowe is also still held up in that same group. So people outside of the game do pay attention to the Foundry, and I just think that Cryptic should kind of keep that in mind.
They really have an opportunity to make it the same kind of cornerstone that it is in Neverwinter, or they're trying to in Neverwinter.
Absolutely.
But they got to dedicate resources to it, and I don't know if they're going to do that.
Yeah. See, I don't think that the Star Trek Foundry, I don't think it has the same ability to be a big cornerstone. The game's just not built that way. I don't think.
Yeah, we kind of are suffering from the problem of having the Foundry added in after the fact.
Right. The game was built as a more, from what I can tell, a kind of a traditional MMO model with a couple of differences. Like the storyline missions are pretty different. The way that you, but more or less there was a lot of a traditional MMO model going on, and then the Foundry was added in later, like what, season 3, 4, something like that?
Something like 3.
I don't know. 3, yeah.
But I will also point out that the game has changed considerably since its launch. Just because the Foundry
and MMOs are always changing.
My point is just because the Foundry is not a well-integrated piece now does not mean that it can't be so in the future.
True.
But again, that means they have to dedicate resources to it.
Yeah, we keep coming back to that, don't
we? And obviously, until, Dan Stahl or whoever says, okay guys, for the next so many months, we're going to be working on the Foundry. Obviously, until then, we're not going to get much.
So I think that maybe what's going to happen is Rob Obermeyer is going to look at the core team and he says, guys, we're working on the Foundry. And at some point, they're going to, I hate to put this out there for all the superhero fans, but at some point they're going to have to decide whether Champions Online is, one, still making them money, and if it's not, whether it's worth keeping on life support kind of thing, or whether it's worth updating that code branch that they have over on Champions Online and bringing all of the games up to par so that they can all utilize this tool that, as you said, Dragoon, Cryptic is known in the industry for. Like,
Yeah.
we did, I guess, your final thought does make me realize that as frustrating as it is working in the Foundry right now, it is still an incredible tool that we get to play with in this game. And people in the industry recognize that. And maybe as a company, someday my dream would be for them to look at all of their games and say, we just bring all of them up to a code branch that lets them at least use this tool. That's what my dream would be.
It's funny you brought up Champions because I figured that Champions Online is the only Cryptic-made game that has not had a UGC tool.
It's because they're on such an old branch, and I don't think they had one
but,
back.
Yeah, I mean, even
City of Heroes, which did they sell it or?
No, it's still under NCSoft's thumb.
No, I mean,
City of Heroes?
Because they developed it, right? But then they got rid of it.
As far as I understand it, what happened was it started out as Cryptic, and at some point it was decided that, I guess by NCSoft or whatever, that they wanted to get Cryptic out, or Cryptic wanted to get out. I'm not entirely sure on that. But what ended up happening was the bulk of...
We should look up the truth of what happened.
What we currently think of as Cryptic Studios left, and a portion of that stayed behind and became what was known as Paragon.
Okay.
Until recently Paragon shut down, and then Cryptic hired a bunch of old...
The question then is, was it Cryptic Studios who developed the Mission Architect system, or was it...
wasn't there long enough
was it Paragon Studios or whomever, NCSoft afterwards? That's my only question, is which studio actually developed the...
It could very well have been Paragon.
Right, it could have been after Cryptic, and then, because if you had a studio split, I imagine you had people involved on both sides of the split that were involved with the idea, at the very least, the early, envisionings of user-generated content and how it might work. So.
Yeah. But either way, I will also say that I think that if Champions Online's destiny is to be on life support, the Foundry would make that much more tenable.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you hear about these games that are going into, they call it maintenance mode. Like they just put the original Guild Wars into maintenance mode where they've got some support staff to keep it running and make sure that, nothing goes haywire, but they're not developing any new content for it.
None.
Yeah.
None at all. So, I mean, if you're going to put something on maintenance mode, the Foundry or a UGC tool of some kind would be a huge advantage to have.
Yeah. Because
then people can make their own content.
Yeah, but the players can fill in the role of the devs.
Absolutely.
And if they're not updating the game, it's not like they have to worry about things breaking.
No, I think that's actually probably why it doesn't happen, is because that's exactly when they need to worry about things breaking. Because if they don't have any support staff, they have enough staff to keep the game running, but they don't have staff to come in and fix a bunch of bugs that are happening or something, right? They're just, as you were pointing out, they're just on support.
Yeah, but I mean, if the code isn't changing, then new bugs shouldn't be cropping up, should they?
Right, but if you're putting player-generated content in there...
Obviously, as we know, we gotta have somebody monitoring it because people will break things, people will exploit.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, it tells me that might be...
Like I said, you need to have it in place before you go into maintenance mode.
Right.
In place, working, functioning, somebody ready to stamp on, obviously the obvious exploits stamped out, somebody willing to stamp on the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
And tell people that, obviously the game itself isn't getting any updates, so your UGC tool is not getting any updates either.
Yeah, that's true.
But as long as you're upfront about those things.
Yeah, that's not really an issue. That's basically, it's when things start feeling, that's what I guess that it is. When things start feeling like they're never going to get fixed. Because that has happened in this game. In the history of this game, if you look at it, there are bugs that launched with the game or cropped up in the first 6 months of the game or something, if you go look it up, that are still there. So when it starts to feel like the bug that, feels important to you or that you're experiencing, when it starts to feel like that one is one of those bugs that that is never going to be high enough on their list of priorities that it's going to get fixed, it starts to get really frustrating. And that's when you start to get the people who get all ragey and ridiculous on the forums and such. So.
Wait, people get ragey and ridiculous on forums? I've never heard of this.
They do. I've changed my signature to just a statue face palming. That's it. Statue now face palms on my signature.
I was tempted this week to revive the old quote of somebody else getting something nice does not equal a punishment for you.
Bingo. I was only I guess
the
you're
utterly silly debate about the Tribble reward.
Gropok gave the Tribble to everyone.
Yes.
Yay. Yay.
Tested out the new Tribble on the Nukara to see if the environmental resistance
Protection.
would keep me from burning up on Nukara. It does not
work? I didn't think it would.
Oh,
but
I still had to try.
I did not understand why people were raging that everyone got it. The thing that bothered me was that it was broken. They finally gave us the reward and it was broken terribly, and I was like, I'm glad that I saw someone else post about this, because I discovered the break that it had very quickly too. I mean, it was an exploit, and it was going to ruin the game if they didn't fix it. So that was what bothered me about it, and I'm glad they fixed it really fast.
It was worthy of emergency maintenance.
That day they impressed me a lot, because their patch that day broke a lot of things, and at I think it was midnight California time, they threw an emergency maintenance out there that took an hour and 20, an hour and 30 minutes or something, and so that they could fix the things that were broken. I was really impressed with how quickly they got that out there, to be very honest.
And you and I got to discussing about that earlier this week, about the difference between game breaking bugs and critical bugs, and just more of the general field of bugs. And that, some bugs are game breaking enough that it usually matters whether it affects the number of people, how badly it breaks. I mean, what's the overall impact of the game? And they kind of have to judge all of these bugs based on that.
So I maintain though that, alright, so the Nukara Tribble, the break that it had was basically the ability to get unlimited Nukara marks for, even though it showed a cooldown, it never had a cooldown. So you could just keep petting the damn thing and getting a Nukara mark every 6 seconds. I didn't do it. I realized that you could do it, and then I went, oh man, yeah, it would be annoying to just stand there and press the button, but how many could you get doing that?
Some people will expend a great amount of effort to not play the game.
It was so exploitable, and Nukara marks trade in for dilithium. Dilithium trades for Zen. Zen is directly relatable to real world money. The things that get fixed are things that cost the company direct money. When it's a bug where they already have my money, I feel like that bug with the KDF costume slots, despite how big it's gotten, despite the fact that it's now affecting everyone.
You know that?
And how many people are screaming about it? I mean, I know that the forums are very small.
How many people are screaming about it?
A lot of people are really frustrated with this bug. And I mean, I feel like it's one of those bugs that's never going to be addressed because they already have all of our money if we bought extra costume slots or what have you. And so it doesn't produce, fixing this bug will not produce any new revenue for them. Or the bug itself being in place doesn't prevent or doesn't screw with their revenue in any way. That Nukara thing, that Tribble, was going to take money out of their pocket if they didn't fix it right away. Because in the hour that it was in game, I guarantee you there were people, because I heard people talking about it in another chat room today, that stood there and got 700 Nukara marks in an hour because of the break. Now, that took money right out of their pocket if they traded that for dilithium and went and bought Zen. It's just like someone who could get unlimited dilithium. It's just putting an extra link in the chain to getting that unlimited dilithium. So they had to fix it right away because it related to real world money, took money out of their pocket. Those are the bugs that get fixed right away. And I don't blame them for it at all. I don't blame them for it. I just don't try to fool myself, I don't fool myself into thinking that they're like, certain bugs that are easier to fix or necessarily. I don't know how to put what I'm trying to get at.
I would argue also there was another aspect of that one being such a high priority is that the longer the bug exists, the worse the problem got. It was an exponentially increasing bug. So, whereas the costume slots are not an exponentially increasing bug.
Nope. Exactly. The Nukara Tribble had to be dealt with because, alright, it immediately started costing them money and it was just going to keep getting worse. Because as nice as the couple of people who reported it and never said anything were, the person who reported it immediately went to the forums and said, hey guys, there's a bug with the Tribble. I'm not going to talk about it, but I've submitted a report. That caused a bunch of people to go online and try to figure out what the bug was. And then they knew about the bug and then they were using it. And then so it was already costing them money and it would have just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And you're right, they have to deal with that as quickly as possible. I get it. I know why things are going to get, a bigger, priority than fixing the slightly sluggish load times with the Foundry, and I get it. I do. I'm sad about it, but I get it.
The hippie does not abide capitalism.
No, I abide it. I know why they're doing it. I endure it, but I can't fool myself into thinking that there's anything else going on there. When it takes, like I say, there are bugs that have persisted since the game began. I haven't been around that long, but it takes a little bit of research to find them. And when that's a truth, it says there are just things that are more important, and very often those things that are more important to a company that's trying to make money and continue to grow the game, those things involve that which makes them money.
Well, we saw that with the forum, or no, not the forum, the crazy Foundry Exploit a few months ago.
Oh yeah, that was one of those that was going to cost them a ridiculous amount of money, and it probably already was, because when people found out about it, it had already probably existed for a very long time. That's one of those. It had probably been there for a while. So
that one actually resulted in bans. I don't know if the Tribble one resulted in any bans.
No, because it was, what happened was the Tribble launched, and I think it was not even an hour later that you couldn't get it anymore, and if you had it in your inventory, it was gone. Until they fixed it and they put it back, and now there's some sort of bug where people are having trouble claiming it, but I'm sure they'll fix it, but they got rid of the unlimited aspect.
See, they're lucky because, if this had been Guild Wars 2, those people would have all been banned.
Really?
Yeah, the Guild Wars 2 devs, they have like a zero tolerance policy.
So riddle me this, Hippie. If they, within an hour, had pulled the Tribble and removed it from everyone's inventory, why did they rush to get it back out again?
Because they had an official announcement that this toy that everyone had been waiting for was finally being released. The special beta test reward, which was just a freaking Tribble that poops out Nukara marks.
Did not get them any more money. If they had delayed it, they would not have cost them any more money.
Okay, they didn't have to rush to get it back out necessarily. They just had to stop the trigger that was letting you do it again and again. They just had to say, no, this thing has a cooldown. Okay, send it back out. You know, maybe that's why. I don't know. But because they had made an official announcement that it was available, and that announcement had made its way out to other media sites.
I guess my only point is that don't make the mistake of assuming there's a simple answer to a complex situation.
I don't think it's always about money. Like I said, I think they really love Trek, and they really care about Trek, and they do some great work. But at the end of the day, I want them to be making a lot of money. I mean, that's point of fact is I really want them to be making tons of money. So
they keep making money, they can keep putting resources into developing more stuff for the game.
Exactly. If they keep making money, this game I enjoy playing, it's still here tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So, you know, whatever they have to do to keep making that money, I'll call them capitalist swine for it all day long, but secretly I'll cheer them and be like, yeah, keep making money. I want to play this game. It's just the way I know. I get why they do what they do. You know, I want to play Star Trek Online. I'm happy to let them keep, protecting their investments and their money and putting bugs in whatever order that they go. But
hey, every lockbox they sell is that much more value I get out of my lifetime subscription.
Bingo. I can't believe I've reached the point that I save lockboxes and I go, hey, maybe I'll open 10 of these today, and I just, what has happened? So
let's move it along to another topic.
Sure.
I thought one that would be interesting to ask each of you in turn is, what is your map building process? When you get ready to start working on a new map that you have not done anything on before, what is your process? Hippie, let's start with you.
I try to think from the eye, whenever I'm building any map, I try to think from the eyes of what the player character is going to see. This is probably where part of my problem with dialogue sometimes comes from, because I've got my character on the screen there, using but I try to see from their eyes how the map is going to unfold and what I need on that map. And because I'm lazy, the first thing I say is there a stock map somewhere that has what I need? And if there is, I'll pop it open and try to see what I can change around. That's pretty much the process that I get started with, is literally I'm gonna go look at what I need first and then try to see that from the eyes of the character. That's how I build, is looking at it. What does the PC, what do they see? Because I did that this afternoon. I was building the map that I'm working on right now, and I was trying to put some characters in the background, and I wanted them, it was what I was talking about before, I wanted to animate them, I wanted them walking around, I wanted them talking to each other possibly at times, maybe at other times stopping and doing this animation. But I realized that they have they're not anything to do with the story, and there's a good chance the player is not even ever going to look at them. Now, given a better state of the Foundry where I could get everything just right and I could make them do all of those things, I would probably do it. But right now I'm trying to look at it exactly like, if the player follows the directions I give them, what will they look at and see? And those are the only things that I'm going to worry about right now in building my maps, is what do the players actually look at? That's my process, is really what what that is. And asking people in the chat room, hey, what detail might look like this?
We have some really inventive people who are willing to just go in and test some things to say, hey, what looks like this? And, they'll figure out, the back of some prop sunk halfway into the floor looks exactly like what you're looking for.
Yep. And that's why I just do a chat room, and if nobody in the chat rooms have an answer for me, I'll potentially go post it on the forums and wait an hour and say, hey, yeah, things, that's a good one, is asking other people to give you a little bit of assistance in, what does something look like.
All right, Zorbane, what's your map building process like?
It's kind of similar to what Hippie does. I kind of plan my missions out like objective based, right? So I'll say like, okay, there's going to be, you have to kill these guys in this room and scan some computer and download stuff from the other room. So I think I'll have, and then what I end up doing actually is I'll get a piece of paper and I just kind of draw out, the guy's going to be here, and this room is like a sick bay, so there'll probably be some beds here and maybe a desk here for like the chief medical officer, and some consoles on their side. So I'll draw these up on paper and then get into the map editor, put them down, and it seems to work out pretty well for me. And it's actually pretty good right now because I don't really need a map editor. I have my pen and paper, and that's enough for now. I don't need to wait 6 minutes for the damn preview thing to load. And then after that, I'll have like my 4 rooms, and I'll go look at like what Hippie does. We'll go look and see with the pre-made maps and pick one that works out for me. And if not, either change it around or build a custom map. That's probably about it.
That's probably something that I would recommend to authors right now. While we have this issue with the preview time being really long, is, draw out a little map first. So you know exactly where you're going to need your walls before you even go into the Foundry. So you can just put down all your walls and you're done, and then you just preview once.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing too. Like, until I finally lost patience, I kind of threw everything down, and then I'd preview, wait the 6 minutes or whatever, and then go to each room, see what problems there are, write down those problems, go to the next room, look at what problems there are, and then fix them in the editor and go back in again. So this way, I don't only have to really go in once to fix like 5 or 6 things. That kind of thing. That kind of saved me some time, but still, for me, I eventually lost my patience.
I'm getting there, man.
But it's definitely a point where you have to sort of change up how you do things a little bit in order to make life a little bit easier for yourself. A little bit less frustrating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yours is definitely the process that I do. I like to, kind of have an idea of what the map is going to be before I go into the editor at all. Sometimes I'll sketch out a little map. I'll figure out what rooms I need. I'm going to figure out what objectives the player is going to need. Then I'm going to put down the base map. And sometimes I'm even going to put in a few NPCs, anything I need for the objectives. I will put in, I sometimes put in that first so that I can rough in the objectives and even put in the dialogue if I've already got it in there, if I've already got it written. Then I'll start fleshing out the map around these things, putting in the walls, putting in the other rooms, putting in the consoles, the details, the other NPCs that aren't integral to the objectives, and then finally, any optional stuff, any map dialogue or anything that comes at the very, very end. So no, Greendragoon, do you have anything, you do anything differently than what we've been describing?
I do, actually. For most of the time I've been in the Foundry, I actually tend to kind of seek out maps and then decide how best to fit the story through them. In most cases, I'll have some idea of where I need to start and end up, and a general idea of what things have to happen in the big scheme of the story on that map. But it's the little stops in the way that'll get defined by the map. For instance, I have been working with I think it's the map from what's the mission where you go back to the Saratoga? It's the Q mission.
State of Q.
State of Q. So it's got that Saratoga map.
It's all broken up though, right?
It's a very popular map.
Yeah. It's one solid piece. It's a huge map. It's really long. I mean, it's got like a ton of rooms. But I think what I ended up, for the contents of the story, I knew that I needed to ship to be under attack in like a state of red alert. So that narrowed it down to a few specific Federation maps. And I wanted to recreate a interior like set that looked like it could be deflector control. So I kind of wanted to give that little hint of the inside of the deflector look. And so I finally I was going through all the maps, and I finally looked at this map and noticed that what I think it's actually the starting room was just big enough that if I doctored it up enough, I could make it look like a deflector control, despite the fact that it looked nothing like that to begin with. So I ended up deciding, okay, this is great. I can build this particular room, and it happened to be at one end of the map. So that kind of meant that it either had to be at the beginning of that map or the end of that map. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't make it at the beginning because the story hadn't advanced far enough. So I made it at the end of the map. From that point, I had to decide, okay, what are all the steps getting there? And a lot of those were defined by kind of what the story needed as it was flowing through. So, for instance, the room where you fight the final boss is actually, it's not where you start, but it's the first room you get to. And so I ended up turning that into the security office. So I basically blotted out the entire back wall with custom security cells. And then the next room, which was kind of this in-between room, I think it was supposed to be where the lifeboats were in the State of the Cube mission. And I ended up building a wall around the platform in the middle, so it kind of sectioned off or hid the back doors that are supposed to be the lifeboats. And then I turned it into a astrometrics lab. So I threw up like screens and kind of had this alcove that kind of curved around with the platform in the middle. Another room that I was trying to figure out how I was going to go through all this space, and I had this one room along the way, and I just ended up turning it into a auxiliary medical bay. So it's kind of just this weird. The maps often dictate like little details in the story, what assets I can find to use, what it kind of inspires me, and then I'll often tailor that section of the story around the map. And I've kind of found that this is really good for getting stock maps to feel like they were built specifically for this mission. That I'm not just using the map that's most convenient. That I don't know if it makes any sense.
Yeah, I've done that in a roundabout way. I mean, sometimes you just figure out that you're just not going to be able to do something you want to do on that map, so you rewrite a little bit to something you can do, or change the map so that you can do what you originally wanted to do.
Yeah, I definitely try to make the mission flow through the map. Just like they did in the original Cryptic missions. Because there was a flow to the mission, and you stop here, and there was a kind of a path through it. And sometimes I'll flip the order and have you start at the end of what was the map in its original mission, and then you end up at the beginning. I've been working on one map that is all custom, and so that required a lot more planning.
Awesome. Well, let's see, Zorbane, do you have anything in particular on your mind you want to talk about?
Other than fix the damn preview thing, that's the only thing that's on my mind right now for the Foundry.
That is sort of the big thing on our minds.
It seems to be a big thing on a lot of people's minds. Other podcasts that talk about the Foundry talk about the fact that preview is really slow, and it's on everybody's mind.
Well, it seems to be. I mean, it's not just us either. It's not just our bug either.
It's Neverwinter's bug too.
It's Neverwinter's bug, and it's just it seems to be a common thing on the forums these days. Is we just want bug fixes.
Yep.
Yeah,
a lot of people are saying that, and a lot of people are taking the tack of the devs don't care about this game because we're not getting those bug fixes.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is not entirely true.
I don't think that's true. I don't want to fall into the trap of saying,
I don't think that's true at all, but it does seem to be a lot of people seem to keep bringing that up. I mean, how many times have you seen in the general forums some thread that says the devs just don't care?
100 million. I don't know. You're right. It's a very common thread among people.
There doesn't seem to be one at the moment, but I'm sure another one will pop up.
Well, the thing that at least that gives me hope is that if Neverwinter's having the same problem as we are with the previous thing, they obviously have more resources for the Foundry than Star Trek Online does. So, thanks to me, this gives me hope that it'll get fixed sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it gives me some kind of belief that maybe because it is Neverwinter's problem that's their big moneymaker.
Well, I don't know how badly they're affected or whether their problems have any relation to ours or not.
From what I hear, it's a very similar one. That's all I know. It's things taking a long time over there. But okay, I've heard that mostly from you, Dragoon.
Yeah. But I should probably go look at the Neverwinter forum to see how.
Yeah, be worth it to check. Here, I'm going to real quick run down a couple of forum threads here that I know Greendragoon you've been posting in, so you can tell us about these. Okay. First of all, going back to sector space mid-mission. Is that possible?
Yes, it is possible, as long as you have an objective that's in a social area.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
It's a little buggy because you have no way of setting the exit dialog for the map you're leaving to go to sector space, so it just shows default, like go to the next map.
Right. Okay, let's see here. Dialogue tree limits.
Oh yeah, this is a Necrod thread.
Yes. Were you guys just arguing about the fact that it was Necrod thread, or
no? Basically, the person who Necrod it basically wanted to throw out that the number of enemy encounters should be increased, and my response was it's just going to cause more problems because it'll be that many more mobs that grinders can put on the map.
That's it. The person who brought it up is probably someone who wants to build grinders. That's what I would guess.
Well, then my answer is unchanged.
Someone looking to hit that loot cap, because there is a loot cap on how much you can earn. How many drops you get in the Foundry. Just somebody wanting to get that all in one mission, I guess.
They need their loots.
What does that have to do with dialogue tree limits?
I think it was just on the subject of limits in general.
Yeah. Just give you an idea how old this thread is. Maplet apparently responded in it.
Yeah, it was an archived thread. Anything that says archived thread on it tells you something already.
Tells you something that it's,
that was a long time ago now that they changed the forums, and this last post in this before this was Necrod was 3/7/2012.
That's not even worth really. I don't know that we need to talk about something that old. I think our dialogue tree limits
are there dialogue tree limits?
Yeah,
I've never hit
1,000 characters in any.
Well, that I know, but what about the number of branches? How big it can get?
There's always a theoretical limit.
Because I've never hit the theoretical limit.
Really?
There's probably a limit somewhere, like they had to before the server crashes or something like that.
But I am sure that the limit is.
It's pretty big, I'm sure.
Used to be lower.
I bet you 10 to 1 this person started. Yeah.
But yeah, this person just wanted.
To be honest, the only limit I've ever actually hit is the costume limit.
50 of them?
Which is why I know that is 50. I have never hit the object limit.
That's really impressive that you've gotten to 50.
I hit the object limit. It's rough once you hit
limit
there
is
because you're still trying to
get the object limit?
450?
475.
Something like that.
475. That's a lot of objects.
Which they upped it. It used to be 250.
Yeah, when you're doing custom interiors, though, it's really easy to hit that.
Yeah. Which is one of the reasons that
it's funny, because I think it's hard to hit that, but that's just me.
Wait till you build a custom map.
I demand a lot of detail in my custom maps.
You should see my custom maps. Everybody loves them, but they're fairly simple.
I've seen your custom.
I'm a bit of a minimalist. Actually, the reason I hit the costume limit was because I wanted a wide variety of civilians.
Yeah, considering
because there's not a lot of choice there.
Considering how much database space we know costumes take up, or characters take up, I'm still pretty surprised that they allow as many costumes as they do.
Well, the other day when he did that online, bunch of people come and hang out on Nimbus 3 party, Brandflakes said, do people realize that one Star Trek Online character takes up the same amount of data as something like 10 Neverwinter characters.
Well, I believe it.
I totally believe that.
And that our game
think
is
about
more
all
awesome
the data
because
for
of it.
bridge officers, all the data for starships.
Yeah.
All of that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it.
I completely believe that as well.
All right, well, why don't we finish up with mission reviews?
Mission reviews.
Okay.
Greendragoon, why don't you get us started?
So I did not play anything new to this show. In fact, I went back and played a couple of missions that we have actually talked about before. The first one was repairing Utopia Tunisia, which I thought was pretty good. In fact, good enough that I really have no recommendations as to things to add. I wouldn't call the story particularly experimental. I mean, other than one choice, it's pretty straightforward. But, I mean, it sets its goals really well and achieves them. But what I did kind of want to talk about was earlier this week, Realm Time asked me to play his Mission Rescue 101, which I didn't remember Hippiejohn had played until I had started to get into it, and I was like, this seems familiar. So, but I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of compare and contrast our experiences. Because, I mean, awesome. I know you had some issues with, like, what is it, Commander Hart?
Whatever her name is.
Yeah, I think it's Commander Hart.
Yeah. I wanted to space her.
Yeah,
and
it's funny.
The only issue I had with her was that in the story and it's not that she was a character that I loved to hate. Those characters are important.
He should make a mirror universe version where you can space her.
He has gone and made something called Airlock 101.
There you
go. So going through this, and so I kind of finally have some context to what you were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, it wasn't Commander Hart, it was Commander Evans. That was it.
There you go, that's her name.
Commander Hart here.
Yeah.
Commander Hart was the one you were trying to rescue.
Right.
So going through it, I don't think Realm's intention was to make Commander Evans a Shelby. In fact, I got the impression that she was kind of meant to be like a mission, or what's the term? Like a mission lead or you know how you would have on the Enterprise where they would have some delegate or some specialist or something who would come on board because it was their mission and the Enterprise was just being assigned to it.
Okay.
So that's kind of the impression I get from her. That she's basically the mission, because she was originally part of this mission before everything went south. She's kind of coming along with you to try and see this mission through.
Okay.
That said, he does kind of treat her like a replacement for all of your bridge officers. Our bridge officers were very quiet in this mission.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake. I think if we want to introduce a character like this, that it's better to have them work in tandem with bridge officers, especially let the bridge officers continue to give the dry explanations. You don't need to introduce a new character. Where Commander Evans could really shine is if she is the one who is bringing emotion to the situation. She's the one who's emotionally invested in the success of this mission. I would personally like to see some kind of background between her and Commander Hart, so that she is like very motivated to get this mission succeed.
Okay.
I kind of saw what you were talking about with the Commander Evans taking over your ship and
making decisions for you.
I do kind of agree with that, and it's funny. I could almost see the conversation playing out better. Like, you get into orbit, it's like, with your leave, I'll assume command, blah 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 blah, and do stuff. And you can have the two options of very well, we're beaming down, or I don't feel comfortable leaving you in command. My crew is much more experienced. At which point she says, as you wish, Captain, but I think I should still at least act as a liaison with the away team. So there you've got
something like that. Even if she was, it's something that I realized the second time I played through was, even if she's the one who answers a hail or gives me a report, if at the beginning I had said, no, my crew's in charge of keeping this ship,
Yeah, but if you structure it way, it doesn't matter which option they choose because she'll be the main point of contact either way.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it still feels like, makes the player feel like they're getting a choice.
Mm-hmm.
In that amorphous who's actually in command.
Yeah, just give me the choice. I want it to be my choice.
I ran into a couple of issues. Some of the objectives seem to be out of place. For instance, you go and destroy all of the turrets, which I thought was a really cool touch, by the way.
Yeah.
You get inside and you're reading all these logs, and apparently one of the turret objectives did not trigger until I was like 3/4 of the way through that. So I had to go run outside, go destroy yet another turret, and then run back inside. And it kind of caused some problems as a result, with one of the map dialogues.
Mm.
So I'm not sure if that was a Foundry bug or if it's a bug in his storyboard. They just had that misplaced.
I didn't run into something like that. I destroyed all the turrets outside well before I was inside.
Huh. I'm wondering if this is a new Foundry bug or not.
We should try to see if we can reproduce it.
Yeah. He used the warp effect a lot, and I don't think he needed to. I mean, he would do it in both systems custom systems, where you warp into a warp field and then warp into the system, but he doesn't use this for any way. So I'm thinking he could cut these and it would work much more smoothly.
Okay. I can see.
I'm honestly, I'm really impressed with this mission. I found myself actually getting very drawn into it, which is a really good sign. I would love to see a little more done with the Raytown system, which is the first system you go to where the ambush is supposed to take place.
Right.
He could do some really fun stuff with some triggers and invisible walls, where, for instance, you're warp in and the battle is still going on. You have to go save a starship, and then you have it set up so that you have both ships there, but there's like an invisible wall between them that doesn't drop until you get within a certain range. So as you approach these ships, they start shooting at each other. And so you could kind of stagger the battle like that. And you could even do something eventually where, just as you're getting to the last ship, the Ryan ship, and I can't remember the name, I'm sorry, warps out just as you're getting there. And so you could do like all sorts of kind of fun stuff, like where you are there, but just not quite fast enough. And I would really like sell the kind of the situation, plus kind of emotionally invest the player a little bit more into the situation versus you showing up after the fact.
Super impressed that he did this thing in like 20 hours.
Yeah, I'm amazed.
You know, and after learning all, like, he did that Foundry Authors Academy, learned all of the basics, and then went and made that in like 20 hours.
I do kind of get the impression that he's gone back and made changes since. Because there were no Romulans back when this went through. And he had clearly gone in and put optional dialogue in for Romulans. Let's see what else I got here. In the atmosphere, I really like the atmosphere.
That flight up out of the atmosphere?
Yeah. He's got nav beacons in place, the non-blinking but have the geometry. I think he needs to swap those out for the
blinking
effect. Yeah, the blinking effect but no geometry. Because they're disappearing. And if they're disappearing, that means that they weren't actually there. So it's better not to have actual geometry and just stay with the blink effect. You could also swap those out for reach markers instead of object interacts. So it disappears when you get there, and then the fighters attack you each time. So it feels a little bit more like an ambush. So yeah, I saw the bridge that you were talking about, and yeah, I agree that you might as well put some invisible walls. I had this really funny idea, and this is purely optional, Relum, if you're listening to this. But if you really wanted to make this like uber cool, you could have it, or like build make the upper level like really high up, and like just have like maybe like columns or something leading up from the base on the ground, and say that it's like some kind of a mining platform. Cause I don't think they actually say what the Klingon base was supposed to do. But yeah, I mean, but I would kind of make that two separate maps. And the reason I would do this is because, he's using that, the wall blocking method to get the character to respawn, which is really cool that he managed to pull it off, because that is not an easy trick to do. The downside to this is that bridge officers do not get transported. And that means that when I went off to face against the boss, I was by myself until I died, and then my bridge officers respond. So in this particular situation, I think as cool as that effect is, it's causing more problems than it's helping. And he's not so deep into map transitions that I don't think an extra map will kill him. But I thought it would be cool. That got me to thinking, though. I thought it would be cool if the upper level was actually like up in the atmosphere. So it was on a separate map. And so when you're walking across, you're like really high above the ground or something like that. And then it'd be really cool with the shuttle landing and stuff. I think that's most of what I have to talk about.
Short reviews this week.
What, that wasn't detailed enough for you?
I don't know. That was the usual Greendragoon style review.
I'm sorry.
Indeed.
I'm someone
I think it's
kind of
cool,
on,
actually.
Details like that.
I think it's actually kind of cool that you guys, to counterpoint on the same mission. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
All right, Dragoon, or no, sorry, Hippie. We just did Dragoon. Hippie, you got one.
Yeah, couple weeks ago last week when we first got the Foundry back and such, I put a list or a call up on the forums that said, hey guys, throw me missions to review. I have a list currently of like 9, 10, if I looked correctly, I have 11 authors that want me to look at missions. So I'm just going to go down the list and kind of try to look at one mission from an author at a time and not try to, not let myself just get caught up looking at one author's missions when there are a lot of people that asked for a review. And this one was, I tried to keep them in order. So the first person to actually ask for a review was Malize, who's been writing, from what I can tell, writing missions for the Foundry for a really long time, since back in Tribble days and such. And he's asked, I guess, a couple of people recently probably for reviews of this mission, because I know that they reviewed Gropok in the General's Lung a few weeks ago on podcast UGC as well, and I purposely stopped listening to the podcast before the review because, well, I wanted to kind of experience it, just kind of on my own, and the title made me laugh a lot. Gropok in the General's Lung. It took me a minute to remember where I had seen it on screen, but Gropok is the sauce that they kind of put way too much of the sauce on his food for Alexander when they're trying to make Alexander into a warrior or something like that in one of the episodes. I had to look it up, and I'm glad that I had to look it up to find out exactly what it was. I knew that it was a food sauce. That's all I knew, and so I laughed at it once I kind of knew what it was, and I said, this is probably going to be a funny mission, and I was not wrong. The mission is not an outright comedy, but it's the kind of funny that works for me, which is incidental comedy thrown into a story that is presented seriously. It's a very simple, direct, Klingon feeling beginning. There are a couple of, if I hadn't written down things like a spelling error here and there, which one is what I have written down, is one spelling error and one place where it looked like it went contact name when he was talking to me, because he just said my name and then my name again. But if I hadn't written those down, I would forget them, because this story is super engrossing. It drew me in from minute one. He uses all of the tricks of how you can use cryptic social maps properly. He puts doors on the social maps and a contact right near the door where you go talk to the contact that says, yes, you can go into the holodeck. It's right behind me. And then that door on the cryptic map starts to glow and you're like, wow, that was just perfectly timed, and those sort of good use of cryptic social maps through the entire mission, because he sends you in and out of cryptic social maps a bunch of times through the early part of it, and uses his dialogue and just the way that he runs you around at the beginning to make the mission feel very Klingon. And it's kind of that story of the warrior who has reached the point in his life that he can no longer do battle as he once did. And so there is certainly a very meaningful tone behind the whole thing, and very respectful tone behind the whole thing, that I don't know, it hit all those right beats for me of feeling Klingon. Or rather, not feeling Klingon, in fact. It hit the beats of feeling like a KDF mission. The characters in it who were Klingon felt very Klingon and felt properly who they were. And the mission felt like something that it wouldn't matter whether I was an Orion, a Nausicaan, or a Klingon. Now, I played it as my Klingon. I felt very, honorable, and it was awesome. But I could have easily seen playing it with any of my other characters, including a space piratey type. The mission is really well designed to me in that sense. So I guess what I would say is that it feels very Klingon, but it doesn't force me to be Klingon to enjoy it. That's as short as I can be. This mission is awesome. Every KDF player should add this mission. Now, I would love to go into the details of the story and what worked and what didn't, but I would be doing this mission a disservice if I did. It is a great story about an aged warrior who can no longer be the warrior that he once was. It's funny, it's in some points poignant, and it is well worth the investment of your time. I will do the story a disservice if I tell you any more than that. This mission is awesome. Every KDF player should add it to the list of missions that he or she plays and considers canon for their character. The only last thing I would say from a strictly gameplay point of view of the thing is play the mission on Advanced or Elite, because as people know, I play a mission twice. I play it once to try to just experience the mission, and then I play it again to make notes on the mission as I go. And in this case, the second time I played it, I bumped the difficulty up to Elite, and I enjoyed it a whole lot more. That's just because the mobs used seemed to be a little bit easy. Maybe that's just, my build, but I don't think it is. I think maybe just play it on Advanced and enjoy yourself, because it's a great mission. Everybody should play it. That's my review.
Fantastic. Now, I want to also put it out there to contact us for mission reviews. I'm going to do it. I'll probably start a forum thread just like you did, but I'm going to put it a little bit differently. I'm going to specifically ask people to give me their missions with less than 5 reviews.
Yeah. Because
it is really hard to see those right now.
It is really
Even when you go to the review content tab, the last time I did that, it gave me 1 mission.
You can't right now find people that have written dozens of missions. I can't find a Captain Revo mission unless I know to type in Captain Revo, and that is so sad.
Yeah.
I don't know, he's got 1 mission, right above me on the top rated list.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I think Kirkfats are nowhere to be found. I think, there's a lot of people. I don't even know if mine are in there. Spotlight missions, of course. Yeah. So, I'm gonna start a forum thread, and people can email us. Email and the Twitter account are always in the show notes, so there we go.
Yeah.
So send me your under 5 review missions, and I will play them. Hey, Zorbane, question for you before we end.
Yo.
Do your missions now qualify for review or for rewards yet or not?
No,
of course,
Dirty Man still doesn't qualify for reviews.
It still doesn't. Jeez.
And for the record, I liked that mission.
I did too.
I love that mission. I like that your missions are inspired by, maybe not inspired by, but certainly affected by pop culture and what's going on, for the time, like in movies and mass media and such around you at the time. It's great. You're half parody, half respect. I don't know.
It was a lot of fun to make, to be honest. Like, it was a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
there's no point in doing it if it's not fun, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. No, that's why I'm sticking around the preview thing right now.
Well, I think that's a good place to end for the night. However, I'm going to end by issuing a challenge to the community.
Oh no.
Sharknado Foundry mission. Make it. Go make
Stop
it now.
Stop it. Stop it.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Okay, Targ tornadoes.
Thanks, everyone.
Targ tornadoes.
Targnado.
Targ tornadoes. Targnado.